Down in the den, so go tell a friend. The best podcast on earth's about to begin. We got jokes and news and movie reviews. After Dark NC-17 with the crew. Interviews with the best artists around. So like, comment, subscribe. The show's starting right now. Let's go. Like, comment, subscribe. The show's starting right now. Welcome to Down in the Den. It's your boy Marz, and I'm here today with a very, very special episode, the first of many that's going to be talking about a gentleman that I believe has raw talent, that has the ability to transcend and open up minds. Rrome, thank you so much for taking the time out and joining me here in the Den. How are you doing today?
Doing great, man. I appreciate you for having me.
Oh man, no, I appreciate you for carving out some time. I know it's very important, and I thank you so much. So I heard your music and it was like an atom bomb to the heart, an atom bomb to the mind. It just really blew me away. And at first I thought it was just a metaphor until I really learned about your story. And then I said, I have to have this gentleman on the show. I have to share his story because it's incredible. So I always say every hero has an origin story. Tell us a little bit how you became who you are from person to artist. What's your origin story?
Yeah, so, my name is Rrome Alone. I'm an MC, locked up for over 28 years now. Got locked up in 1993 when I was 19. Prison ever since, and so around the year 2018, I started recording some of my lyrics over the phone. So, it's you could call that the origin story, but I mean, of course, it's so intricate, so many more details to flesh in between that space. But that's just how my story began. I got locked up in 1993 when I was 19, and fast forward, 28 years later, and
So 1993, that was a very big year in hip hop. We're talking about the early days of Tupac. We're talking about the early days of Biggie before he released the album. We're talking about Public Enemy. We're talking about a really golden age. Now, obviously, before that, before being incarcerated, were you into hip hop? Were you into the music, or is that something that you discovered your talent years after?
Yeah, man, I'm hip hop head from day one. I'd probably go back to around about 82, 83 as far as my earliest memories of hip hop. I used to go to this skate rink in Raleigh, where actually was right outside of Raleigh and Cary, called Sports World, and we used to break dance. That was kind of like my intro into hip hop as a whole, as a culture. And from just break dancing to the instrumentals of some of the popular tracks back then, Tour de France and Electric Kingdom, then the slow evolution to me finally actually hearing some rap. So Fat Boys was like the first group or the first, rappers that I really heard and fell in love with. I love the gimmick, of them all being overweight and, rapping, and, it was all fun and humorous. So initially I wanted to be a DJ, because DJs back then got all the top billing. Hip hop was all about the DJ. And, so that was my aspiration. But, I lived in the projects and, my mom couldn't afford to buy me, 2 turntables and a mixer and, that type of equipment. And so eventually I just kind of learned, that I could rap. And it was easy to rap, and it was, something that I fell in love with. And, I've been, rapping ever since 86 pretty much. Yeah, I mean, and you mentioned some of the early era in 93. Most of those MCs that you mentioned, they might have just been on the cusp of releasing, but when I got locked up, I can tell you exactly what was in heavy rotation in my tape deck. And I say tape deck because that's when I was still rocking cassette tapes. I was listening to Cool G Rap, Ill Street Blues tape. I had EPMD, the whole hit squad, Redman, DOS Effects. I had Dr. Dre had just released The Chronic, and our Gang Stars, Step in the Arena. Those was, like in heavy, rotation. That was the music I was listening to right before I got locked up in 93.
Wow, and I mean, all of those albums are definitely classic. I consider myself a bit of a hip hop historian. My brother, who was 10 years older than me, when I was a little kid, he was playing Cool G Rap, he was playing Public Enemy, he was playing Too Short. So I was really young listening to music I probably shouldn't have listened to, but I loved it. So hearing that
Yeah,
list, Cool G Rap, I think is one of the most underrated, should be in everyone's top 10 if they know hip hop. Gangstar, of course, fantastic. So that's awesome. Now, when you were just coming up, I know you mentioned that you wanted to be a DJ and that you were all about being a DJ. And you're right, it was DJ Jazzy Jeff, it was Eric B and Rakim. It was all about the DJ. Um, when you discovered that you can rap and really could put lyrics down, because I think your lyrics are amazing and they're extremely hard hitting, but it's just so emotional. When did you find out that, hey man, not only can I make music, because in '86 the music, like you said, was fun, but I can also tell a story with my hip hop and actually, heal. When did you discover that ability? Was that much later on?
yeah, absolutely. That's definitely. I've been incarcerated. I did about 10 years total in solitary confinement, but I did a stretch for 7.5 years from '96 to 2004, and it was during that time that I really kind of honed in lyrically on, talking about me, talking about, exploring things within myself that, I hadn't, developed the ability to express to other people, and, just putting things in paper on paper, and know, making them rhyme. It became a form of therapy for me, and it helped me with coping a lot with problems I was dealing with emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and just being able to take those thoughts outside of myself, put them in words, take the time to find the correct words, make them rhyme, and then I could memorize them and recite them. They eventually became like affirmations and or even declarations and motivations. So that's really was honed during the many years that I did in solitary.
Wow, wow. Incarcerate the body, but you can't incarcerate the spirit and the mind. And I think that is amazing. I think that is amazing. Your journey and discovering that and everything you've been through and still being able to be positive and really just authentic. So, I salute you, brother. I salute you, King, for that. Now, how did you get out? Because I've talked to your manager and your producer, and I mean, I guess it's really just technology. When I first heard your most recent song, what's the name of that most recent release that you got out? I want the rest of the den mates to know that single.
Live on death row.
Live on Death Row. And at first, I'm just looking at it and I'm thinking Death Row, the record label. I didn't realize, you're like, oh no, you really mean that. But it's so powerful. And I'm thinking, how did they record? Like, how did it get so crystal clear? And then I spoke with your producer. So was it really just the technology and the timing with you being able to just get the music out there and make it sound great and sound like it's recorded live in the studio? Or was it something that you were kind of planning
Yeah.
on a while ago?
Okay, so yeah, man. Fortunately, that everything when it finally is ready for release and people hear it, obviously they get to hear the finished product. But it was many, many, many months, and even prior to that, many years in preparation to get to the point that we're at this moment now. So, as I mentioned, the first obstacle being able to record. I've been locked up for 28 years, as I mentioned, and you know, amongst those obstacles is I haven't had any access to any recording material. So, in Central Prison, in North Carolina prison system where I reside, is that, as far as access to, technology and music, the only thing that we have ever had access to right now is AM/FM radio. So I've never had a cassette recorder since I've been in prison since 1993. I've never had, a CD player. I've never had an MP3 player. None of that technology. And in addition to that is that, I didn't have access to be able to use the telephone until 2016. So it wasn't until 2016 that, I was able to communicate with the world outside of prison, know, other than by mail. So in 2016, we got access to the telephones, and naturally, I've been writing rhymes, my whole life. That's one of the consistent things that I've been able to do on both sides of the wall. So, naturally, when we got access to the phone, one of the first things that came to my mind is, hey, man, for my rhymes. I know with technology done advanced a lot. I heard Shine did an album while he was in, jail and prison. I heard some other rappers, that had tried to do rhyming over the phone. I wondered if I could do it. So that began the process in 2016, but it didn't actually, take off until 2018 when I met my engineer, Michael Betts. Him and I began recording as just acapellas. That's all I had was just doing acapellas, and he was posting them on SoundCloud. So the first acapella I did was a song I wrote, just.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
Talking, I think we had left off. We were just talking about.
I was explaining about how when I had first hooked up with my engineer, Michael Betts.
Yes.
Started recording acapella. Yeah. So let me just continue from there.
Yeah, just go ahead and continue right from there.
Okay, so so when I first hooked up with my engineer, Michael Betts, in 2018, actually October I think the 6th or the 8th, it was October the 8th, and 2018 is I recorded an acapella song I wrote, just shouting out all of my hoods in Raleigh. I'm from Raleigh, and being that it had been 25 years at that time since I had been in prison. I wanted to, shout my city out and let everybody in my neighborhood and all the neighborhoods in Raleigh just, I hadn't forgot where I came from. So I did this song called "Round My Way," and it was just a cappella that I recorded over the phone. And Michael Betts, he posted it on SoundCloud and shared it. And in like less than a week, it had like 100 likes. And when he told me that, it was just like overwhelming. I was so hyped. I was like, to me, like being in the biggest rap cipher I had ever been in my life, I'm accustomed to just nobody even hearing none of my raps. Most of the rhymes I've been writing, I've just been rhyming to myself or, to a specific person here or there. I may have, had 5 or 6 people that might have gathered around before, but to have 100 people all liking something that I spit, it was motivating. So me and Mike, we kept on recording like every week or every 2 weeks and SoundCloud, and was getting a lot of, feedback. People were liking what I was doing, but everybody kept saying, yo, man, you just need some beats. You need some beats. But, I ain't have access to none of that. I ain't have no access to any type of beats, or nor did I know any producers. Barely had anybody's phone number. So I just began the process of networking and trying to find some producer that could put, beats to vocals and sync them. And I felt like, from my, little knowledge, I felt like that should be easy. I'm a rapper. I know that if they just hear my raps, they know how to time it and put it in time with the beat.
Right.
It ain't something kind of difficult. I ain't realized, all about, actual timing when you're dealing with digital tracks and, how the human, tendency might fluctuate a little bit, if it's not something that, has a measured beat to listen to. So it was a problem. And eventually I ended up seeing an article in the newspaper in 2019 talked about a professor at UNC Chapel Hill here in North Carolina, Mark Katz, had a beat lab, and he was teaching or inviting producers to come to his lab to teach kids in the hood how to make beats on their laptop. So I said, man, this dude might be able to help me find a producer as well as help me with the quality of the vocals. That was one thing I was worried about because I didn't want the vocals to have an inferior quality.
Right.
I didn't want them to, sound, like I said, my only reference was before that was Shine. I heard some of Shine stuff on the radio, and it really had a huge echo effect. I couldn't hardly hear what he was saying, and I just knew that in this day and time, as I couldn't make no music and rapping in a way where, it wasn't precise, especially with digital technology, people weren't even going to listen to it. So contacted Mark Katz and writing him, and he wrote me back and hooked me up with Nick Neutrons. It was like, yo, he said, I heard your vocals, I heard your rhymes on SoundCloud. He said the only thing that I think is you just need some dope beats, and I can hook you up with some producers with Nick, and the rest is history.
And that's phenomenal. And time plus opportunity plus preparation equals great success. And that's what I feel in your future. The music is incredible. The marriage between the beats with the audio. I'm thankful because you're absolutely right. I did hear the Shine album. I think it was Man Buried Alive or something to that effect. And you're absolutely right. The quality. Lil Wayne also did some on Drake's album when he was incarcerated. And you could tell, you could Bobby Smurder as well. And you can tell they were on the phone. You can tell they couldn't hear the beat. But with yours, it's just the quality is so top notch that I can't believe that you're not in the studio with the producer coming up with it. So it is a marriage made in heaven. It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal.
Absolutely. And I give major kudos to Nick. That's one thing that, I know is that he's taken this, seriously, and he's devoted countless hours to trying to perfect the quality of these vocals, to get the right sound, to make sure that the vocal chain is the best chain that can be used, etc. And it's been a tedious process. And, I'm sure with, some producers, especially, big celebrities like Shine and Lil Wayne and, Bobby Shmurda and, other artists that have recorded from prison over the phone, is that, if they're using a big producer, they might not have time to, focus on, getting all of the nuances correct, etc. And it's just, trying to quickly get a release out. But Nick is taking time, and that's why I say is that, fortunately, we've arrived to the point where you're hearing the finished product, but it's been a huge, marathon pretty much, is getting from the beginning to where we are now. And, his work and, the preciseness and the clarity that has come about from the vocals, that was like my main concern. I'm so pleased with how it sounds because, this was the main obstacle that I feared. And, now I feel that comfort zone, like, now it's just up to the listener. If they resonate and if what I'm saying is resonating, that it's not going to be that they're thrown away just because of the quality of the vocals is bad.
Well, shout out to Nick Neutron because he has done a phenomenal job with your phenomenal lyrics. I can't stress it enough. I love this story because it is a survival story. On paper, there's all the strikes against you, all the strikes, and you've overcome each one of those strikes to bring us a product that I think all it needs is exposure. I always talk about the 3 Ps: purpose, passion, and a plan. You had the first 2 in spades, and it was just a plan on how to get this music out there. And now that mission is accomplished, I believe there's nothing but positivity. I believe it's Grammy quality music, and that's why I'm so addicted to this story and getting it out there to the masses. So that is phenomenal. That is phenomenal. We always talk about the origin story, which incredible origin story. Now we're getting the music out to the masses. What is your goal and hope with the, besides the traditional, I want to sell a bunch of records or have a bunch of people exposed to music? What is your ultimate goal by getting this music out there to the masses?
Yeah, man. Really, I had this, really life-changing experience. As I say, I'm on death row, and there's so much to be said, about my experience in prison, and particularly on death row. But, personally, guilty. The crimes I'm accused of, is I'm guilty. I committed those. And so I had, I guess a certain degree of, faith that the system usually doesn't get it wrong when it comes to the innocence, death penalty. So bored when in 2014, death row prisoner by the name of Willem, who had been in prison here on death row for 30 years, was exonerated. Now, not guilty. And he had the crime that he was accused of was a horrific crime. It was, charged with the rape and murder of an 11-year-old girl. And, they said that he had given confession, etc. And, this guy had been in prison. I knew him. He was with me. And he had said that he was innocent, and the fact that he was exonerated and found innocent by a panel of judges, not just one judge. We have in North Carolina one of the only states that has what's called the actual innocence commission. Judges actually, can review a case and determine if there's a true claim of innocence. They found that he was innocent, and D.E.N that exonerated him and proved that it was another prisoner that was in prison, right now that had actually committed that crime. So when that happened, it just made me feel so ashamed and embarrassed because, I had condemned Henry McCullum in my own mind and heart. I thought he was guilty, just like the jury that found him guilty and probably, many other people. I just felt embarrassed. I felt ashamed. I felt like, hey, man, how could you actually listen to a man who claimed that he was? So it affected me so profoundly that, I knew that I had to take more serious claims if they said they was innocent. And it ripped off the veil pretty much on my eyes of the criminal justice system and realizing that, justice is going on and people that are around me, might actually not be guilty of the crimes they committed. So it was in years later that one of my close friends had confided in me and told me that he, a friend of mine named Stacy Tyler, who I know as support. And, I became motivated to try to, bring some awareness to his case. So it was in 2019, to be exact. We was looking out the window, and right across the street, J. Cole was having the Dreamville Festival, which is literally right across the street from Central Prison and Death Row. And there was over 40,000 people from all over that could come to Dreamville. I was telling Sabor, I said, man, crazy. Right across the street, 40,000 people, Dreamville, and not one of them know that on the other side of the street, it's a man that's living a nightmare. He looked at me, and he had that look in his eyes that just like, was a heavy, weary look. And he said, yeah, man. That just something sparked in me in that moment. I said, well, you know what? I said, they had a Dreamville Festival, 1,000 people, out in my name and your name, because we're going to do this music, and we're going to make calls in the that's an innocent man here on Death Row. And I just felt inspired and moved to try and continue to try to beat the drum, to try to, just scream and generate some attention. The fact that there's innocent people on Death Row, in particular, Stacey Tyler. And so that's became the motivation for why I'm making this, not just because it's, I like to rap. I mean, it's a dream of mine. I feel, incredibly, fortunate to have an opportunity to pursue a dream of mine from especially where I'm at and, the place I'm at in my life. But also to have some greater purpose than just, the vanity of making a song or making an album. Is that, it means so much more to me. And I'm Muslim, and in the Quran, Allah says that to take a life is like killing all of mankind. But to save an innocent life is like saving all of mankind. So that gives, my purpose and what I'm doing some greater meaning. And I feel like if I can save this man's life, if I can bring enough attention to this cause, because I recognize that, what I'm doing is something novel. There's nobody else in the world that I know of that can claim or say that they made a rap album from Death Row. So this is something unique, and I feel like it could probably generate some attention. But I want to take that attention and shine it on the people that really don't, they really need the attention, but might not have no type of skill or means to generate attention for themselves. So that's the real purpose of what I want to do with this music.
Yeah. Wow, that literally brought a tear to my eye, man. It is I'm rarely lost.
60 seconds remaining.
Rarely lost for words, but I tell you, man, that purpose is beautiful. And it's beautiful because like you said, in your faith, to save a life It's like saving all mankind. And if you just impact one, that's incredible. So I salute you. We are going to talk again very soon for part 2 of this interview. It has been enlightening, brother, and I can't wait for part 2. I want all the den mates to
You have 30 seconds remaining.
I want you guys to support this music and stream this music. So like, comment, subscribe. The show's starting right now. Let's go. Like, comment, subscribe. The show's starting right now.